Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the White Sox beat writer for MLB.com and a BBWAA member. Please welcome Scott Merkin to the program. Scott, it's great to have you on. How are you?
John, great to be back. I'm guessing you're calling because of you want to talk about the Chris Webber, Jaylen Rose reunion, right? After Chris made the Hall of Fame yesterday.
What did you think about it?
I thought that was great. I honestly don't know the inner workings of why there was, an issue. Because I know, as Jaylen Rose pointed out, they were playing together since they were 13. And I still think, I'm biased totally, but part of the most influential group in the history of college basketball. I would think some of those UCLA teams, that UNLV team that beat Duke in the championship and then went unbeaten until the Final Four the next year is in that group. I mean, really kind of changed the look of basketball. I get it. I will hear from everyone. The only thing they won in their 2 years together was the Maui Invitational. I understand, but they also got to 2 championship games, and probably should have won one of them. But it's a great group. So it was very moving to see. Almost as moving as Jaylen Rose had a great tribute to his late mother on Mother's Day, and that was equally moving. I mean, really good guys, really good representatives of the university overall, all 5 of them.
Who's your favorite player from that group?
Wow, I'm going to go with Juwan Howard right now because he's coaching the basketball team. So, I think they each had a different thing. Howard was just a great guy in the middle, good force in there. Weber could really do everything, and as Jaylen Rose said, kind of changed, the look of the big man a little bit. Although Magic, I guess, had kind of done that as, as like a 6'9" point guard, basically, right? Jaylen Rose just had a great swagger to him and was, just fearless. And Jimmy King and Ray Jackson, I think, would have been, number 1 or number 2 options on most teams, and ends up being, the 4th and 5th guys of the Fab Five. So I'm going to go with Howard right now, though, because of the fact that he's coaching them to, what I hope is a national title this season.
Scott Merkin here on Sports Talk Chicago. Scott, what's your reaction to the White Sox recent wins?
I mean, it was an interesting game because it was kind of I don't want to say plotting, but not a thrill a second game until the later innings. That 8th inning was crazy because Greg Holland, who, the Royals kind of reverted back to 2014 with their bullpen closing yesterday. Greg Holland, I want to say, threw 42 pitches out of the bullpen because they had used their main guys, Scott Barlow and Josh Stallman, I believe you pronounce his last name, the night before. And I want to say Friday also in the win in game 1. And, they drove up the pitch count pretty high on Barlow on Saturday. I want to say he threw in the 30 pitch range on that night. So it was Greg Holland and then Wade Davis. So shades of I don't think Greg Holland was part of the World Series championship team. He was part of the team that lost to the Giants in the World Series. And that was a crazy inning where they loaded the bases, and then Madrigal's check swing led to the out at first to end the inning. And then, Davis came on and they won right after him right away. But I mean, again, it's a great story because they're a really good team overall. I think they're the best team in the AL Central by a good distance right now. And that's without Luis Robert, without Eloy Jimenez, without Adam Engel. But again, it's another notch in the legacy of a great legacy of Jose Abreu, who I was off on Friday, so I didn't see the game live, but I saw that tape of him running into Dozier. And we're not talking about, Jose Abreu tripping over me running to first base. He ran into, kind of a brick wall in Hunter Dozier. And he wanted to play that night. He wanted to stay in the game that day, and he really was. Back on Saturday, he hit a home run, and then, great play to score, to be ruled safe at home plate and score the winning run on Sunday. So just an exciting finish to a game that was kind of there for most of the day.
What's his value to the White Sox, Abreu?
Wow. I think I would see people who would do deeper dives into his metrics and that kind of thing. And again, I've talked about this probably on your show and many others, that I think there's, there needs to be a balance, and there is huge value in our StatCast measurement, I guess, or device. I don't know what you want to call it. Program is tremendous. I mean, you find so much good information just by looking into that. But people were talking about, Abreu kind of regressing going into the year that he signed the contract with the White Sox. So going into 2020, signed a new contract with the White Sox. And I just didn't see it. He had the 1 year where he finished poorly because he didn't finish at all, really, because he had a couple of weird physical issues that kept him out for like all but 5 of the games in the last 6 weeks. Otherwise, the man is the model of consistency. And I get that in this day and age, stats are changing, stats are different, but I'm sorry. If RBI is so meaningless, then everyone should drive in 80, 90, or 100, right? If it's all a function of the team. The man knows how to drive in runs, knows how to come up with big plays. But I think he's just, you hear Tim Anderson, who is really the heart and soul of that team. I mean, you notice the difference in that team when Tim Anderson is not playing for an extended time. Even he points to Jose as saying, that's our guy. That's who we follow. That he'll lead us to a championship. And I mean, I think Tony La Russa, I was going to say Tony Abreu. I think there was a Tony Abreu at some point in there. Tony La Russa has made a comment a couple times, and it makes sense that Jose plays the scoreboard, and not in a bad way, and not like he's not talking about he plays his average like, he's hitting 278 and needs 3 hits to get to 280. Like, for instance, yesterday, he knew if he scores on that play, they win the game. He knows if it's the 9th inning and they're down by 1 and there's a base hit to right, he's got to get to third to get there with less than 2 outs, or to even just get there, period. So he's just got great baseball IQ. I mean, he's a leader on that team. I could not imagine them winning, and I'm not going to say win a World Series because so much can happen. We've seen a lot of really good teams plow through the regular season and not get to the World Series title. But I mean, it would be unimaginable with what he's put into this team the last 6 years, and nothing is owed anyone. He got paid. It wasn't like Jose did this for free and said, hey, I love Chicago. You don't have to pay me for 3 years. He earned a living and earned it well. But it's still, with what he's given to that team and how much he's helped those younger guys, it would be weird to not see him part of this team's renaissance after the rebuild.
What do you think about La Russa comparing him to Pujols? Is that accurate?
I mean, I've watched Pujols over the years. I haven't covered him directly that much to know, the ins and outs of what he does. But from what I've heard, it sounds accurate. I mean, except for Pujols has, the World Series titles, which Jose is yet to have a playoff series win. But Jose really has only had one chance to win a playoff series, and that was last year against Oakland. I mean, he's the same kind of guy who will go out of his way to help out guys and, puts the team above himself. I think it would have been very easy for Jose to say, and not even easy, like expected for Jose to say after Friday, man, I need the weekend. I'll see you in Minnesota. I'll be there in Minnesota. We're all good. And he's like, no, team needs me. I'm going back in. Now, again, you have to be careful on that. And Tony La Russa stressed this 3 times on Sunday. He went through every medical protocol to get, to be cleared. And they were absolutely ready to stop him if something wasn't cleared, because you can't give up 2 games for him wanting to get back in for what could be an extended absence, obviously. But yeah, I think he's the same type of guy. He's the same type of guy who's a great producer. I mean, Albert Pujos's run in St. Louis is historic, right? I mean, Jose Abreu's run in Chicago has been very, very good. But I mean, Albert Pujos's run is Hall of Fame worthy, right, in St. Louis. So maybe, a notch. And in fairness to Abreu, Albert played for better teams around him. But I mean, they're the same type of guys, same type of team first. Let's get the team moving forward. Let's get everyone on the same page above my own stats or my own accomplishments.
It might be too early to ask this, but is he an MVP candidate again this year?
Again, I think it's too early just because he had a very slow start. There's no denying that. He had, which is another thing you can add to the list about this team being 24-15 is, as I mentioned, no Robert, no Jimenez, no Adam Engel. Tim Anderson was on the IL. Yasmani Grandal obviously was affected a little more than we thought in spring training by that knee injury. And he even told us near the end of spring that he wasn't worried about a slow start to the season offensively because he knew he would hit eventually. And I'm sure that's still the case because he's an accomplished veteran. But I don't think he thought he'd be, even though he's getting on base quite a bit, his OBP is like in the 370 range. Yet he's still hitting like, 120 or whatever, which again is May 17th. But I know, he wants to be above that, obviously, and contribute a little more there. And then Abreu had, by his own admission, a very slow April. And yet there's still 9 games over. So, I think you don't even see MVP talk until probably after the trade deadline or somewhere in mid-August because, guys, I remember, his name came up a lot because of Yermin Mercedes' unbelievable April. Remember Craig Shelton, I think his name is, who played for Detroit. And I think he hit like 11 home runs in April. And I think finished with, not many more than 11 for the season. So, you got to play out the whole year. But I mean, he's always in that mix just because he's probably one or two or maybe 2 or 3 most valuable players on one of the best teams in the American League, and maybe one of the best teams in baseball, at least as of 39 games into the 2021 season.
Scott Merkin here on Sports Talk Chicago. Scott, what's your evaluation of Tony La Russa's job so far?
I think he's done a solid job. I mean, I think if you take the name away from the complaints about La Russa and just put it out there, it could have applied to Ricky Renteria. It could have applied to sometimes in Joe Madden's tenure with the Cubs. Probably could apply to David Ross. I'm just using Chicago reference. It could have applied to Robin Ventura. I just think it goes with the territory. And I think one of his, probably problems, but his positive traits is he's been too honest. After that Cincinnati game, when he, admitted he didn't know the rule that he could have gone back to Jose Abreu as the automatic runner on second instead of Liam Hendricks, which again didn't really matter in the scheme of things because Hendricks advanced to third and was stranded there. But he could have easily said, just passed by it and said, well, we wanted to use Hendricks in that situation. But he's honest about what's going on. So I think again, he's talked about this since he got hired. He came into a phenomenal situation. It's not often that managers get hired to take over a team that has a World Series or bust mantra, not just for this year, but for 2022, 2023 as well. Usually you come in and you got to build a little bit. Look at what, AJ Hinch came into in Detroit. They're 3-4 years away probably from being in contention, maybe 2 or 3, depending on how the young guys develop. But, it's rare that happens. And I think the biggest thing for him is just to kind of be the steward of the ship that's sailing towards, the championship. And I think he's, I get that people didn't like that he wasn't playing Vaughn enough in April. And the fair criticism. I get that people didn't understand when they were down by 2 why he didn't go to Vaughn instead of, keeping Leroy Garcia in there. But again, that didn't cost him a win. That might have helped them, but you have no idea. And if you do, you should be doing something other than complaining on Twitter. You should be playing the lottery every day. You have no idea that Vaughn was going to come in and hit the game-tying home run. Vaughn might have come in and hit the first pitch back to the pitcher and the inning was over. So I think it's just, hey, I've used this story that one time during John Beilein's tenure as the Michigan basketball coach, I tweeted something. It was midway through his season, and I tweeted something about he's a great guy. He really knows basketball, but I don't think he'll ever take him to a championship. And that year he took them to the championship, and a number of people found that tweet and threw it back at me, and rightfully so. So I think it's just kind of a right of the fan to just say, he's not doing the job we want, or he is doing. It's kind of like I was talking to some people in White Sox media relations yesterday about Greg Walker, and I think Greg Walker is one of the more underappreciated coaches in Chicago sports history, let alone just baseball. And I think it was Paul Konerko who said the hitting coach position in baseball might be the worst position in all of sports, because if the hitters do well, it's, you have a great offense. The offense is unreal. Hitters do poorly, it's you need a new hitting coach, So I think it's just the nature of the job. And I think Tony La Russa has been fine for, this is a way too long answer. You can edit it down if you want, but they're 24-15 with all these mishaps, with all these injuries. Look at the Twins. They've had probably as many, if not a few more, and they're 12 under and 10.5 back. So, I'm not criticizing Rocco Baldelli. I think he does a great job too, but it's hard to complain when your team is in first place, Tony La Russa's team, and they have the biggest lead of any division leader going into today's action, in Minnesota.
Where do the White Sox go realistically right now?
I didn't know if you'd have any more time for questions after that 6-minute diatribe on Tony La Russa there. Now, when you say when you say where do they go, what do you mean in general?
Playoffs, World Series. What do you think right now about that?
I think, again, I think everyone, rightfully so, was a little nervous. You take any team and you take off, the caliber of Eloy Jimenez, who's a 40, a silver slugger, a 40 home run, 100 RBI guy, Frank Menachino, the hitting coach, has said that he should, be a regular 320 hitter. You take Luis Robert, who's a 5-tool talent and really the anchor of that outfield defensively. And even Adam Engel, who probably would be, the everyday center fielder with Robert out, and really was having a good spring, and it already has been, a finalist for a Gold Glove in center field. And you would expect a natural drop-off. So the fact that they haven't is pretty impressive. I think there's a lot of parity in baseball this year. There's very few teams that are way out of it, and there's no teams that are way ahead of it. But I think their goal is World Series. I think their goal is World Series. In the same sense, I don't think no one really knows until Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert get a little further into the recovery what the timetable is exactly going to be. They've given us the parameters of 5 to 6 months, or I think it was 12 to 16 weeks for Robert without baseball activity. But no one knows until they get further out from into the recovery. But I don't think you're going to see Rick Hahn go crazy to get a guy who's just going to fill in possibly, if they don't get one of these guys back for the rest of the year, because they have a good group. They have a great chemistry. They have a talented team. Now, if they can give up someone that they like, but they don't perceive maybe as part of this 3-year plan or 4-year plan, then you may see it happen. But again, I don't think I think Rick Hahn wants to win this year. There's no doubt about that. Kenny Williams wants to win this year. Jerry Reinsdorf wants to win this year, but they're not going to tear apart a key part of the core just to get someone who may help them through the rest of the season.